Hi, welcome to Diving into Deep Waters. I am your host, Erin Rowling, and you have not seen my face for a little while, but we are back. I, I don't know. I'm like nervous. I'm like sweating. I'm like, do I know how to remember how to do this? I don't know. Yes, I've been doing it for a couple of years, but I feel like not the camera side of things. But I don't know. Maybe it all has flown my mind and I don't remember. I don't know. But it was not intentional, just so you know. We did not plan. If we would have planned, we would have been able to say, like, hey, we're taking the month of December off. But that was not what happened. My voice decided that, I don't know, it was tired of talking. It was, I don't know, just wanted to rest. I do a lot of talking for my job in my life. And so maybe it was just like, I'm out. I need a vacation. And if you're not going to give me one, I'm just going to take it. So much so that I ended up needing to be on vocal rest, which I can tell you is pretty humbling. It it's not the right, I mean, is sickness ever to ask your permission like, hey, could you be sick right now? I mean, I think that would be so much easier if it was like, hey, I was thinking about here, and you can say to it, that doesn't really work for me. Or, yeah, you know what? Or now, how about now? You can be sick. Doesn't work that way. And with Christmas and all the stuff that's entailed with that, losing my voice was definitely a challenge. Like I said, it was humbling. It was difficult. It's difficult not to talk, and not even like, it wasn't one of those things even where I was like, oh, I should just like save my voice. I literally could not speak, so much so that I actually had to go to Walmart and pick up a prescription, and I could not, like, nothing was coming out. I had Abby with me, and I was like, hey, like, you're gonna have to tell them like my birthday and stuff. And she is a teenager. And she was like, absolutely not. I'm not talking to the pharmacist. And she stiffed me so bad, you guys. So I took my phone out. I wrote down, my information and stuff. And so I get up there. I mean, nothing, no whisper, nothing was coming out. And so I was just like, show it to him. And he literally looked at me like I had the plague. I don't know if you've ever watched movies where like all of a sudden everyone gets infected with something. And that's literally how he treated me. Like, this woman's infected and she's going to get me sick. Losing your voice is a very isolating thing. And it actually, like, I cannot imagine day after day after day after day not having your voice. It has given me a completely different compassion and realization that some people, that is how they live. They are not able to speak. And the way that that man treated me, I have a good mind to actually write into Walmart. And as you can see, it's not 1,000%, but we were not going to wait any longer. We are committed to making this, and we're going to push through. I got my water, I got my Ricola, but yeah, I was going to write in and say, listen, if somebody comes here and they cannot speak, I don't know, maybe they have something that says they can't speak. I don't really know. That's a good question. But to treat somebody like that who has no power over their voice, you should treat them better. Do better. Do better, Walmart. Let's all do better. Anyways, so yeah, and then I started to regain my voice, and then Frank decided to take my daughter to England and Italy and take a couple weeks off. Didn't ask my permission. No, I think the Lord was like, you're fine. You need some time to just rest and regroup and all of those things. And here's the beautiful thing about it. I have missed doing this with you. And it's when you don't get to do something, sometimes you can be like, you know what? I no longer need to do that. It doesn't fulfill me in that way. Or it can do the opposite. And it can be like, I am craving to be back. And I can tell you, I have been craving to be back with you. Doing this podcast helps me get in my word. It helps me dive in deeper in my own life. And basically, if this is your first time listening, or maybe you're a new listener and you're like, why diving into deep waters? It's because that is something that I continue to go after in my life, is to dive deeper with the Lord. And in the midst of that diving deeper is to bring you the things that God is teaching me. And so it's basically, you want to know what's going on in my life? Listen to this podcast, because it's pretty much like, hey, this is what's happening to me. So what does God say about that? Or what does God want to teach us about that? But here we go. We're no more time off for a while, unless I lose my voice again, which I have no control over. But I do have a little update, because I realized that I'm just going to pause here for a second. I have Christmas stuff behind me, and you guys, I haven't got my Christmas stuff down, and it just is what it is. So maybe the colors will be bright and cheery to you. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry that I haven't got my Christmas stuff down. I've been busy, and it's fine. And if you still have yours, this is why I have it up. So you will feel fine about the fact that your Christmas stuff is not down yet. I'm not one of those people that the minute my kids open presents, the tree is down. And if that's you, I applaud you. But that's not how it goes over here. So, my little announcement. I have a big announcement, actually. It's a personal one, and it's very, very exciting. I don't know, the way we're doing the camera now, I can't really tell what's on there, where I'm supposed to look, or any of those things, so we just wing it. But I have a sweatshirt, and it has a new title that me and Paul he will not wear my title. This is my title. But I'm going to be Mimi. Paul's going to be a papa. Our oldest daughter, Amanda, and Frank, who works on this podcast, are expecting in June. And so we are thrilled and excited. So if you don't follow me on social media and you didn't know, here's your announcement. So we are thrilled, over the moon. It was hilarious kind of how they told us, because Amanda has been telling me, here's the thing, as you have adult kids, it's like you don't want to pressure them to do things. And never would I want to pressure anyone to having kids, like when they're not ready, because if you have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so last summer, she kind of was like, I think next year we'll talk about it and stuff. And I was like, okay, sounds like a plan. Gives me hope. It's all good. Because I'm jealous of you people with grandkids, all right? I'll just admit it. And so they came home because Abby was a representative for her sophomore class for homecoming. So all of her siblings came home to just be here with her and support her. And so I'm in the kitchen. I'm making all this stuff for a women's gathering that we have at church. And Amanda's sitting on the counter. And first of all, she says, Dad, Mom needs an assistant. So I'm hiring. Not really. I have nothing to pay you. But I loved it. I just loved that she was looking out for me. She's like, Dad, you need to get Mom an assistant. But anyways, yeah, that would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm just going to sit in that thought for a second. I was thinking that the other day. I was like, if I had an assistant that I could pay nothing to. So anyways, moving on. So she's telling me how all her friends are starting to get pregnant. I was like, Amanda, you will get pregnant when it is the right time. Like, don't feel pressured. You have goals. Don't worry about it. Little did I know that whole conversation was a ruse to make sure that I was not on to her, that she was pregnant. And so finally, at the end of the evening, we're all sitting on our big comfy couch, which fits our whole family, which is just like exactly what I envisioned. If you're like, who cares about your couch? Go listen. I talk about it in a past podcast. It's a big deal for our family. And we're all sitting there, and my daughter Liz comes in, and she's wearing this pink sweatshirt. And on the pink sweatshirt, it says Auntie. Now, here's the thing. For most people, maybe that would have been the clue. For us, Liz will wear a sweatshirt that says Grandpa or Uncle or Dad. If she likes the color, she's going to buy it. She's going to wear it. She's a thrifter. She doesn't care. If it's comfortable, she doesn't care. So nothing went off in my brain that said, oh, excuse me. Wait, what does your sweatshirt say? So we're all sitting there. we're talking, I'm letting her use my heating pad, telling her she can't use it for the night. And she says, but I need it. And I said, that's my emotional support heating pad. So you can have it. I love you, but there's boundaries. And all of a sudden, Abby looks at Amanda and says, and because she notices the sweatshirt, and she says, are you pregnant? And she shakes her head, yes. You guys did not compute, because I don't know. I just was not prepared for that. Didn't think that was on the horizon. And so then she goes, Amanda. And Amanda's like, I am. And Paul's like, are you pregnant? And she's like, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, don't be a ding dong, which is my word I like to use. Because I'm like, it's not funny. It's not funny to tell us you're pregnant and then you're not pregnant. And that's just rude. And she's like, I mean, she just keeps saying it. And Frank's like, she is. Amanda's friend sitting on the couch with us, who's also pregnant. And I'm like, tell me, is she pregnant? And she's like, she is pregnant. Then it starts to click. Then we have tears. Then we're all clapping and excited, of course. And yeah, we are expecting our first grandchild. And Paul is so cute. He is just adorable about this, because when Amanda said, you can't, now this is the hardest part. They told us we couldn't tell anybody, because I wanted to make sure to a certain point. And so he says, well, when you do tell people, you can't tell people until I tell my church. And she's like, Dad, like, it's our announcement. And he's like, okay. And then I got to go to her first appointment, and we got to see little baby Russell is what we're calling it, because they're not finding out the gender. They haven't told us any names, so it's going to be a big surprise. And I can even say today, as I'm recording, everything is great and good. Baby is good. I'm pretty sure the baby has my daughter's nose, because today they went for their anatomy scan and, just got to see it moving around in there. And it is amazing, the fierceness and the love. You grandparents have told me, and you just can't understand it until you're in this place of like, I remember sitting in the room waiting for them to tell us like everything was okay and call us back and everything. And I just thought, I'm more nervous for my grandchild than I was nervous for my kids, but it's just another story. And so, yeah, we're delighted. We probably will be taking some time off close to June. So I'll tell you now. And just so we can bond as a family and be there as a help. She's already enlisted my help every other week. Once the baby comes, we will go and help out. So yeah, that's our news, and we're pretty excited over here. So be ready to hear lots of things about babies, because I'm sure it's gonna come up at some point. But with that out of the way, I'm gonna take a little sippy sip. Although someone says when you sip, you get lines on your mouth, which who needs more lines? I don't know. Anyways, so I have a slight addiction right now. If you're a scroller, which most of us are, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, my kids are always like, if you watch on Instagram, like you're way behind because TikTok has it first. I'm like, okay, I don't care when I see it. I mean, honestly, like trends, and I'm going to be doing like TikTok videos or something like that. So I don't need to worry about the trends. And like once you watch something, then it like kind of keeps feeding you it. And I have been, this is really weird, but I've been obsessed with like people opening oysters, and they like stick those clamps in them. And then you'll watch like people take them and they'll open them. Not all the way usually, but they'll take like this little, some kind of tool, and they like move the oyster aside, and then they like plunk this little pearl out of it. I don't know why it's so satisfying. Maybe the same way, like if you watch like Dr. Pimple Popper? Yeah. Or you watch videos like that, which my sister's obsessed with that. Maybe my mom just raised weird kids. I don't know. But I don't know, it's just, like, so satisfying to see it just, like, move this thing, and then all of a sudden this little pearl or big pearl or whatever kind of pops out of it, and I don't know, it's kind of like like if your tonsils, like, if you move them and, I think there's, like, tonsil rocks, actually. Someone told me that the other day. My kids told me that. I don't know if that's really a thing or not. But anyways, I could watch these videos all day long. It doesn't really get old to me. I'm I'm obsessed, especially when they do it and they can pull like 2 or 3 pearls out of the same oyster. You're like, "Jackpot." And sometimes I rewatch those ones because I don't know. You know what? I think it's because it's kind of amazing. There's like an oyster is not pretty. On the outside, it's pretty ugly. It has like grossness, like corroded on it, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, they open this corroded looking thing, and inside of it is this beautiful mother of pearl. And then they find this beautiful pearl that has been put together by this oyster. And I don't know, it's just kind of amazing to me. Like every single time that I watch it, I'm like in total wonder. And I know some of you are saying, wow, we can tell she hasn't podcasted in a while because it's not very deep. Don't you worry. We're going to go deep, and we're going to go deep right now because I've been in this book, and it's called Sensible Shoes, if you would like to know. And I'm actually in the 4th book, and I cannot get enough. And I've like nearing the end of the 4th book, and I keep saying, what? Like panicking a little bit. It's kind of like when your show is going to end and you're like, what am I going to watch? That's exactly how I feel about these books. I'm like, what am I going to read? Because I'm just loving everything about them. And so much so that we're actually going to take the book and do it as a small group with our church. And I would tell you, for your church, if you're looking for a small group for women, it's about women. Sorry, guys, it's not for you. But if you're looking for something, it's phenomenal. I just I could not recommend it any more. But what I was going to tell you is, though, I'm super excited because I found out that there's more books that go with these books. And I already ordered one, and I'm so excited because I'm not going to mourn being done with these books. So, anyways, super excited about that. But so what I've done, though, as we've gone through these books, is I have underlined things that stick out to me as I'm reading, things that just because they're even though they're following the life of these 4 different women, there are some very powerful God moments in these books, or passages that there's some prayers in there. There's learning how to spiritually sit with Jesus. I mean, it's just like a spiritual overall. To me, that's how I have felt. I feel like I needed a makeover. And since I'm not going to get one physically, even though you kind of do that whole let's hold things in place and see what happens. But we're not going to do that. But that's kind of how I felt. I felt like and maybe I didn't even know it, but I needed a spiritual makeover. And I feel like these books have just spoken so much life. They've also made me very raw and very surrendered and a lot of tears. But like I said, I couldn't recommend them any more than I am right now. But I went back because in my group, we were going over some chapters that I had already read. And so I thought, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to read what I underlined. And I just thought, well, just, freshen up. Not thinking it was going to take a turn and just like be like hit me like a ton of bricks what I read. Because the question is asked, what do you know about how pearls are formed? And the lady answers, and she's like, a grain of sand, right? That's like a grain of sand gets in there, and that's how it begins into an oyster. And the lady says, sometimes sand, but sometimes a parasite or another irritant. At first, when the piece of sand, the parasite or the irritant enters the oyster, it tries to get rid of it, naturally so. But if it can't, it begins to enclose it into a mucus sac, and then the oyster begins to coat it with the mother of pearl, the same beautiful thing that is inside of the oyster. And it layers it day after day for the rest of its life. It's kind of funny because the character jokes back and she says, maybe next time you look at the pearl, think of that it's a tomb for a parasite, which is kind of funny. No one's here to laugh at it. But it sits with you a little bit. We're going to kind of come back to that in a little bit. But it kind of brings a little different thought to something that we admire. We just look at a pearl, we instantly recognize its beauty. But that's the thing about a pearl. It's like you look at it and you go, wow, that's stunning. But do we look at it and say, wow, that's a miracle? The process of this pearl is a miracle. And I think that this applies to life specifically. I'll be honest, some things in my life right now, this hit and it hit hard. So when something hits and it hits hard, you guys get to hear about it too. Because something enters our life. Maybe it's a piece of sand, maybe it's an irritant, maybe it's a parasite, and it enters out of nowhere. And at first, we're trying to get rid of it because this is not something we asked for. We didn't order it. And yet here it is. There it is. I love the next line that this probably hit me the most. But it says, life's painful intrusions aren't negotiable, are they? They happen. And it's what we do with them that matters. Life's painful intrusions. Has life given you painful intrusions? Something happened that you never saw coming? Have you tried to negotiate for it to be gone? We like to negotiate. I like to negotiate. Maybe you're like, oh, this is not a week, Kimosabi. I think we do. It's almost like a game that we play with God where we like to give him our thoughts and our terms and give him the plan of how he could fix this, how he could make it go away. And we also might add in that, like, God, I would greatly here's how you can fix it, and I would greatly appreciate it. And we kind of almost order him. I don't think that's how we view it, but I think we do, where we're like, get rid of this, God. Like, why are you letting this stay here? Get rid of it. Come on, take care of it. But the question is, those things are going to happen. The Bible even tells us, you're gonna pass through hard things. It's not a when you pass through the hard things, it's when you pass through the hard things. So that leaves us with the question that's at the end of that. It's what we do with it that matters. What are we going to do with the parasite or the irritant? I feel like a grain of sand. Yeah, that seems blah, not lovely. But an irritant or a parasite seems a little bit just kind of on a different level for me personally, I think. And it says that the oyster puts it in a sack and begins to coat it day after day. And I think that the reason why it puts it in the sack, and I kind of sat with this for a little bit, is because if it didn't put it in a sack, the likelihood of it affecting the whole oyster is pretty high. So the irritants or the parasites that come into our lives so easily could seep into every part of our lives. My husband's really good at something. He's really good at putting things in boxes. I would say if he were an oyster, I think he'd be really good. He's going to laugh at this. Really good at putting the mucus sac around it and being like, okay, he's very good at that. I probably am a little bit more like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It's going to affect every area of my life. I think we approach things two different ways, but be like the oyster who recognizes that it can taint everything else about the oyster. But if it's put in the sack, it's contained. It doesn't allow it to affect the rest of the oyster. And then after it does that, it begins to coat it. So I think here is where we have a choice. Not a choice. It's not negotiable that things are going to come into our life. It says it's going to happen. So yeah, it happens. But how we move forward in that is really up to us. And we get to decide. So much of life is, I was just talking to someone the other day, and I was like, it's your choice. You get to choose how you carry out the next so many years of your life. Certain things you've had no control over, but you do get to choose how you approach it. See, we could coat it with bitterness and resentment, self-pity, right? That's an easy one. But here's the thing, what does that accomplish? What does that do for us? It does not benefit us to have all this, well, if God wouldn't have put this in my life, or if the enemy didn't put this in, whatever, however you view it, and it could be different. One could be the Lord, one could be Satan. I don't know. It just depends on the situation. But you could be like, well, it's, well, it's here. I guess everything is downhill from now, and I'll just have to deal with this for the rest of my life. Excuse me? Or another way that we could deal with it that's still negative is we can try to pretend that the pain isn't there. We can ignore. And some of you, I'm reading your mail right now. I'm reading your mail that you have ignored. You push it down, you sweep it under the rug, and almost like we're holy for doing that, right? And that's a lie from the enemy. Like, if you were holy, you could just not notice it's there. Meanwhile, it's still affecting you because you haven't put it in a sack. You haven't put it in your box and begin to coat it. No, it's just there. It's going to affect everything. If the oyster's like, I do not declare that this is here. I will not speak of it. Therefore, it does not exist. Sorry, but the irritant, the little, parasite, thank you. Thank you to myself. You can tell it's been a while. The parasite is going to exist. So you turning a blind eye does you absolutely no good at all. Just want to put that out there. But I think that in the midst of these times that God invites us to name our pain. Jesus himself, before the cross, some pain about to go down. And yet he names it. Father, if you could take this, we've talked about this, but it's good reminders that Jesus himself was like, this is about to get rough. It's going to get hard. Name your pain. Speaking it does not mean that it's now going to be in existence. Don't ignore it. That does you no good. Don't stuff it. A lady told me that the other day. She said, I'm not going to do the Bible study because I'm a stuffer and I just want to keep stuffing. And I said, honey, at least you're honest. At least you're willing to be honest with yourself. But maybe it would be much better. I'm not saying it's not going to be painful, but don't disregard it. Instead, be invited into this space that Jesus says, go ahead and name it. It's okay. I myself have named my pain. Last time I checked, we aren't better than Jesus. I think we should take him up on that offer to name our pain to him. And what's going to happen is, in return, when we name our pain with him, we do not get a God who is angry with us. We do not get a God who says, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. There's a word. No, he's gracious and he's kind and he's loving in the process of that. And he gives us grace for our suffering. He gives us grace. And here's the thing, he promises that nothing will be wasted. Hope. He promises us hope. And Jesus is a perfect redeemer for our sorrow and our suffering. If there is a part to play, so many times we think God needs to take care of this. God needs to fix this. God needs to, I would say, what is our part? What is your part? What is my part? Because we get to play a part in God in accomplishing things. It's not a solo thing. It's a partnership. So it's an if we entrust ourselves to him. You have a part to play. I have a part to play. The miracle, it's a miracle that this oyster can create something so beautiful, but it's also a miracle that Christ has the power to make something precious and beautiful out of your pain, your sorrow, your suffering, your catastrophe, your irritant and your parasite, or it's your grain of sand. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. And I don't want to present something where you're just like, okay. And then like you get into it and you're like, this is a lot of work, because it's a process. It requires work, hard work. It's difficult to coat something day after day after day with mother of pearl instead of all of the other things that we could be coating it with. It's hard work. I'm not going to present something to you that you get in it and you're like, Erin lied. No, many of you have already been through things and already coded things. We're going to be like one of those pearls that I love, that I watched the video 2 times, maybe 3 times, where it's like, not only is there 1 pearl, there's 2, 3. I don't know how many. I should have looked that up. How many pearls can an oyster produce? Well, guess what? We're not an oyster, but God can produce a lot of good things in us. We've been popping out pearls like you wouldn't believe. Woo! I'm excited about that. Now, the other night, I need another drink. This is a long time to talk, especially when you haven't done it in a while. The other night, Jesus woke me up. I think he's hilarious. And as I wrestled through some of my negotiations with him, and I just felt, I don't know where this came from. I think, what you watch or what you eat before you go to sleep is probably what's going to come out. So I'm not saying this is like this huge spiritual thing, what I'm about to say, but it applied and it worked for me. Okay. Because I might have watched Cinderella before I went to bed. And it was the scene where Cinderella, wants to go to the ball and she's wearing her mother's dress, and those terrible stepsisters like grab all of her stuff. And she's just standing there like ripped apart, just it's been a traumatic event for her and she's not able to go. And who should appear but the fairy godmother? And what should she say? And I wrote it down because apparently I said it wrong the other day. But bibbity boppity boop. Bop. Yeah, we're going to go with it. And then bam, she's transformed, into this beautiful princess and has this gorgeous dress. And, that just seemed real nice to me. I just thought, that'd be really nice, Lord. And the Lord was like, yeah, no, I'm not a bippity boppity boo God. I'm not. And I was like, okay. It's kind of like when someone tells you can't have, like when you're a kid and your parent tells you can't have the cookie or you can't have the pop, and it's just like, I want it. And the Lord's like, that's not how this is going to work. The thing is, and God reminded me of this, is sometimes in our journey with God, He will teach us things. And through this book, I have seen God just grow me in so many areas, but and just spoke into my heart in just profound ways. And one of the things that is a big theme of this book is to sit with what provokes you. And that night that I was awake, I realized I had to sit with what provokes me. And something about the pearl is that it says that it coats the irritant or the parasite day after day. It's not in a rush. Just day after day, coating that thing with something precious. Our pain, our suffering, whatever you name it, and go ahead, name it. What is it for you? And if you're like, you know what, I am doing good, I got no storms, then listen to this as an encouragement for someone, because trust me, somebody in your life is going through it. But whatever it is, your pain, your parasite, your irritant, is to remember that the process of God making something beautiful out of it cannot be rushed. Just as the oyster is just consistent day after day, the things that God is going to bring into the testimony of His goodness, the testimony of His love, the testimony of that He says who He says He is who He is. The same God of yesterday is the same God of today and the same God of the future. It's a process. It's not a wave your little thing and it's okay. That's not how the process works. There's a line in here that my friend pointed out, and she said it, and it provoked me, which means we sit with it. You got it. And I thought I'd like to white out that line. I just think it would, I don't want to sit with it. And I didn't the day that I did, and they're gonna listen to this and be like, "Hi, Erin." And I did. I'm just being honest. I was like, "Oh, that's nice. I should probably underline it because everybody else is." And still have peer pressure sometimes, you guys. But the Lord was like, "No, girl, you need to underline that because you're gonna go back over this and then it's gonna stick out." Because this is what it says. Take it slowly and reverently. We need to be reverent in our pain. I mean, sometimes we just got to sit with it. I don't know about you. Now, some of you are like, yeah, I'd like to wipe that out too. It's not. Sorry, this does not sound like fun at all. Be reverent with our pain. But isn't that what the pearl does? That thing, it hasn't gotten rid of it, but it coats it day after day. A line that I also underline and would like to take out is the path to freedom and healing takes us right through the heart of pain. You can't go around it. You can't wave a magic wand. But I can tell you what you will find as you go through it. You will find Jesus, the Good Shepherd, that walks with us in the darkness. And something that I am holding on to so dearly, so like it is so close to my heart, is being reminded. A friend said this to me, and I am like holding on. You are not alone. And you're not. I am not alone. You are not alone. And maybe this podcast is just for me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I have a sneaky suspicion I am not the only person who has found an irritant or a parasite in my life. And what I want to choose, because it's my choice, right? What I want to choose is to layer it daily, coat it with mother of pearl, share my feelings, be raw with God in the midst of coding it. Maybe as we're coding it, we're like, I hate this. This is not fun. I want this over. But we still are obedient to code it, even in the midst of how hard that is, because we know He can handle all of the things we have to say. We also know that He's going to give us grace. And He promises. And what we can hold on to is the promise of His glory coming through. My daughter has been sick the entire pregnancy, and she keeps waiting for that week where she no longer will throw up. She's tired of it. She's overwhelmed with it. But then she gets these little glimpses. She sees her baby on a sonogram, and she sees it moving and its little mouth, and then it has her little nose. And she's reminded, this is painful right now. This is not fun right now. But one day, I will hold that baby in my hands and it will be worth it. That is our hope. And you've got to cling to something, friends. Otherwise, it will destroy you. Cling to hope. I've gotten my word for the year. I've talked about this before, and at some point I will share that. But I've never, I think, gotten a verse for the year. And what's interesting is I did this podcast, I felt like the Lord said, this is your verse. And it's a verse we know so well. But it's taken on a whole new meaning for me this year. John 10:10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life and have it more full. The parasite, the irritant, comes to destroy the oyster. But little does it know, the oyster will coat it and be patient. I had this thought, and that's a weird thought, but it kind of spoke to me. Because I thought, I feel like the oyster has more faith than we do. Track with me for a second. It coats the irritant, the parasite, with mother of pearl. Something beautiful. It does it daily, never missing a day. It has faith that if it continues to do that, something beautiful. It cannot see the beauty. We get to see this pearl. We get to see the outcome of it. And we're like, wow. And we trust the process because we get to see the outcome. But in our own lot, that oyster doesn't get to see that. It just is faithful to continue to coat it, continue to coat it, continue to coat it. And voila, this beautiful thing happens. Where is our faith like that? That we know, we can trust that we coat it, we coat it, we coat it, we coat it, even when our eyes can't see it. I know you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. Lines from a song that are super deep in my heart right now. Coat, coat. I have faith. I have trust. I know. And then one day it's like, yep, I knew something beautiful was going to happen. The Bible says, oh, to be like an ant, and that's a whole nother story. But I think it should say, oh, to be like an oyster. Who knows? Consistency, continually coating is going to bring forth something so beautiful. This is a miracle. It's not just for the oyster, it's for us. This is the miracle of having God present, an ever-present help in times of trouble, Therefore, I will not fear, even though everything else comes at me. I will not fear. I didn't even have that written down. The fact that God can take the hardest valley, the hardest thing in your life, and bring you out the other side, it's a miracle. But He's faithful to do it, and He's gonna do it because He tells us that He's gonna do it. If you're in your valley, and you named your parasite, you named your irritant, or you know someone that's in a valley, I encourage you to coat away. Say that to yourself. Coat away. Today I'm going to coat like I've never coated before. And let's see what God's going to do. And be patient. Bathe every day in prayer. Surround ourselves with people that we trust, who will continue to encourage you and strengthen you in this journey. And then they get to be a part of the pearl being formed. Kind of cool. So when God reveals it, it's not just your story, but it's everyone who's invested in its story. Welcome back. Welcome to 2025. I think this year might give us the ride of our lives, but I'm here for it. Because if it grows us more like Jesus, I must decrease so that He must increase. And that's what we're after. I love you guys. Thanks for coming back.